Hello, I'm Victoria Chemko, and as the founder of Umami Marketing, and more recently Umami Travels, I've been location independent for about 8 years now. This month I'll be sharing a little bit about my personal story, and then I'll delve into how you too can successfully balance a remote work life. Those who meet me are usually surprised when they first find out where I originally grew up. I was born and spent my childhood and teenage years in a very small, isolated town called Terrace in northern BC, Canada. From there, I really wanted to escape and see the world down in the big city of Victoria, BC, where I moved for university, and then I headed from there over to Vancouver once graduating. I worked in politics for about a year, and then in a corporate job at an e-commerce startup software company for almost 7 years, as it grew from 6 to around 160 people. At that point, I became antsy and wanted to start my own business for a lot more freedom and flexibility to travel and be where I wanted, when I wanted, and have the chance to call my own shots. So during that time, I attended multiple destination weddings over the year after leaving my 9-to-5 and worked on sorting out what I would do next in life, as I planned to design a lifestyle that incorporated more of the values that were most important to me. After taking on a couple of small digital marketing contracts for friends who ran their own companies, I had a lot of major life changes happen at once, which culminated in my decision that this was the way I wanted to move forward. I'd continue to do digital marketing for companies, but on a much larger scale. So I did this at a time when there wasn't a lot of what I would call infrastructure available for digital nomads like me who were traveling away from their homes and thus had to find a way to make everything work, to keep in line with my key priorities of freedom and flexibility. Thus, Umami Marketing was born, and from very early on has been made up of a team of specialist contractors, both locally in Vancouver and around the world. So throughout this time, as I went from being a sole proprietor of the business to incorporating and taking on a team after the first year, there have been many challenges to overcome along the way. For those of you who are also interested in working remotely or becoming more location independent, here are some key considerations to help you get started on your own path to freedom. 1. But first, internet. Although this may seem obvious, accessibility is definitely something that you have to keep in mind while planning out your travels as you're constantly on the move. Back in 2011, Wi-Fi wasn't as ubiquitous or reliable as it is now in many countries, and it could be difficult to find places with a stable connection, especially in Southeast Asia or Europe, where I spent the majority of my time to start. Thanks to travel review sites, talking to other travelers, and other travel bloggers sharing their experiences, I can usually find reliable information as to the state of internet access in the cities and towns I want to visit in advance of me booking my trip. Beyond that, one of the most important things I make sure to ask when booking accommodations is how reliable is the internet when it really comes down to it. So research is key here, as finding yourself in a location with unreliable access in this industry is completely detrimental to your work, obviously. So with tethering, data SIM cards, and mobile internet sticks, there are options in the case of limited or patchy Wi-Fi, but these can be costly and aren't necessarily a long-term good substitute in many cases. They're, however, great and mandatory backup solutions. Otherwise, I found if you do get to a hotel or apartment and the internet isn't as reliable as expected, there are always coffee shops or restaurants who may offer better solutions. Luckily, the term Wi-Fi is universally known across languages, so no matter where you are, you can always ask for help. Also, it's nice that this is becoming less and less of an issue over time. 2. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate well and often, as it's more difficult to get your message across when you're not working in the same space as others, both your client and your team. You need to ensure that you're in constant communication with everyone. Don't go dark, get everything done that you say that you will, and provide support and access to everyone that you deal with on a regular basis. There are also so many online tools available nowadays that can support this. Some of the ones that we use are Skype for video calls, Asana for project and issue management, Google Drive for web-based document management, and of course, regular old emails, text messages, and phone calls, among others. And another tip, be clear with your customers and team members about differences in time zones, especially if you're on the move often. Remember that they're likely still in the same place and time zone back home, so do your best to work around their schedules to accommodate calls or video conferences. Don't expect a customer to be available for a call at 7 p.m. just because it works better for the new time zone that you're in. 3. Be willing to change course. When you're constantly in a state of uncertainty, since you're not at a regular office or home base, there are challenges or unexpected events that could come up. Things won't always go smoothly. But then again, isn't this what life is like in general? It's important to stay flexible and open and be willing to adapt to address these changes. I've been in countries where the internet was so much slower and less reliable than expected, like Laos and Myanmar, like 8 years ago. I'd hoped that it'd be better, but I also knew going in that I may have to shorten my trips. So both times I did actually just do that. I had a one-way ticket into Laos and ended up leaving a week earlier than anticipated. And for Myanmar, I had to buy a whole new outbound flight after only a week-long visit instead of 2, as I just wasn't able to do the work necessary there. As a result, I didn't get to see nearly as much of both countries as I had planned, but know that I'll go back one day. My business priorities came first, and at the end of the day, this company is what has sustained me and provided me with the lifestyle that I've always wanted. 4. Discipline is key. I definitely believe that life is worth living now and not only later, after such and such has happened, with less regrets of what you didn't do at the end of your life. But in the meantime, there are some realities that you must face. It isn't all puppy dogs and roses. You must be disciplined and get your work done. Being in a new place all the time, of course my inner explorer is constantly curious and wanting to learn about it and take in as much as I can whenever possible. So balance is key here, where you'll need to incorporate working hours when you're most productive during the day, as well as downtime to visit and explore. This is why when I do most of my traveling, I don't jump around from place to place quickly, but I prefer to stay at least a week to a month in a given location, to have enough time to really experience it, but also give myself time to stay on top of my work and deadlines. 5. Do what is needed. Don't have an external monitor on the road, but need to get that intricate analysis done from your hotel room or Airbnb, and there's no co-working space nearby? Well, I've done everything from sitting on a bed when there's no table or desk in a room, to using a planter to hold up my laptop with an external keyboard, to begging a random storefront to use their internet, to always having a backup data SIM card for my phone to tether to my laptop. At home I have a beautiful automatic standing desk and a 4K screen, but sometimes you have to do what you have to and forego comfort to get the work done. The beauty is that these are a very small price to pay for your bigger vision of a life that you lead on your own terms. So to summarize, considerations for working remotely include 1. But first, internet. 2. Communicate, communicate, communicate. 3. Be willing to change course. 4. Discipline is key. And 5. Do what is needed. And now that you know more about working remotely, please check out our recent blog post. Take care.